3, 2, 1,
Zero.
0, and liftoff!
Hi there, I'm Space Lady Zoe from SPIF at Cornell University, and I'm going to show you a fun hands-on activity called Secret Surface that's going to show us about how we study different worlds in the solar system. So whether you're a K-12 educator or a parent, this activity can be done in a classroom, at home, with materials you probably already have on hand. In this video, I will start by showing you the activity itself. Then I'll talk a little bit more about the science behind the activity, and then finally I'll give you some tips and tricks for setting it up and modifications that you can make depending on the age of your child. For this, I will need a child. Here's my helper for today.
Hi, my name is Toki, and I am 9 years old in 4th grade.
Well, thank you for coming to help us today, Toki. So, in the solar system, there are some worlds, like Venus, which is a planet, and Titan, which is a moon around Saturn, that have such thick atmospheres that their entire surface is covered in clouds. And that means we can't see the surface when we're looking down from space or with our telescopes from here on Earth. But we do want to know what that surface is like, right?
Right.
So you're going to use a special instrument called radar. And this is the clouds that we can't see through, but underneath here is a secret surface that you're going to help us discover. Are you ready?
Ready.
You're going to poke through each square with your stick. You're going to look at the color that it goes down to. Then you're going to pull the stick out and you're going to color the box with the marker.
Yeah.
Ready?
Ready.
All right, go!
Brown. Pink. Blue. Is that super high?
Well, Toki has finished making her map of this secret surface. Toki, can you show us what you found on your map?
I found mountains over here, hills over here, and I found valleys here.
And what told you that those were mountains, hills, and valleys?
Red and orange means mountains, and pinks means hills, and blue and brown mean valleys.
Very good. Are we ready to see what the surface really looks like?
Yes.
Big reveal. Are we ready?
Yeah, we're ready. Whoa!
And there it is. So there we see our high mountain, our lower hills, and the valleys between them. Well, Toki, thank you very much for being my helper today.
You're welcome.
So now I'm going to talk to you a little more about the science behind this activity. So as I told Toki, this is something that we need to do when we want to study the planet Venus or Saturn's moon Titan. Those are both worlds where they have such thick clouds and haze in the atmosphere that we can't see the surface, at least not with our eyes. So every day on these worlds is a cloudy day. Thankfully, there are colors beyond what our eyes can see, and one that we use a lot is radio waves. Yes, the same radio waves that are used to transmit radio broadcasts here on Earth. They travel really well through air and clouds. So we can use radio waves in the form of radar. Now, radar is when you shoot radio waves down through the clouds, they hit the surface, they bounce back to the spacecraft that sent the radio waves down. And so in this activity, that paper represented those clouds that our eyes couldn't see through, but the skewer was our radar instrument that could go through the clouds. And when you poke your radar through the clouds, it goes down, and depending on how deep it goes down, tells you how high or low the surface was, and the color can be used to find out a way to represent that elevation. Now, what we do with the spacecraft is actually timing. We time how long it takes for the radio waves to bounce back and forth, and that tells us how far or how short they went into the surface. So now I'm going to tell you what you need to do this activity and what the prep is. So let's go over our materials. The first thing you will need, of course, is a box. Something about this size or the size of a shoebox will do, and you want to make sure that the lid is cut off so it's an open box. And you want to make sure, of course, that it's deep enough for you to have some variation in your terrain that you're going to build. You then need some paper with a grid on it, and then you will need tape to tape the paper over. And then you will need just objects from around the house. You can go into your kitchen, find things, or just wander around the house and find objects. And you will build your secret terrain in there and use some tape to secure it, some markers of various colors, and a skewer that's color-coded. Now, let's say that you do not have a skewer or you don't have paints that will work well on it. There are other things that you can do. What you really need is something long, sharp, and skinny to do this. And so if perhaps you have a metal skewer instead of a wooden one, this is not so easy to color. Instead of doing that, you can create a color code. And then when you poke in with your skewer, you just grab it right at the top of the paper, pull it back out like you're doing a dipstick, and then you can hold it up to your scale to see what color you should color it. And anything can be used for this. If you have a really long skinny knitting needle or even a coat hanger that you can bend out into a straight line like you would for roasting marshmallows, that will work as well. And for the paper, I made this grid paper on a PowerPoint and then printed it out, but if you don't have a printer or you don't have PowerPoint, that's fine. You can just grab some paper, tape multiple pieces together if you need to, and they don't need to be super exact. You can just take a pencil and a ruler or any straight edge and draw lines. They don't need to be perfectly straight or perfectly evenly spaced. You just want to create a simple grid for that. And finally, I wanted to talk to you about some of the tips and tricks and modifications that you can do to this depending on the age of the children participating, depending on how many children there are and what their particular interests are, and talk about other subjects that you can build this out into. It's a science activity, but it can be about way more than science. So first of all, the grid paper. How many grids you make and how widely spaced they are is something that can be scaled for the age of your child. If you think that your child's going to want to do a lot of details, if they're an older child and you think they're really going to be into it, you can make your grids small and have lots of them, and you get a more detailed picture that way. But if your child's very young, you might want to make only a few squares that are widely spaced, so that it doesn't take them too long to poke through and color all of them. Colors, as far as how many colors you use and how spaced out they are on your stick or your scale, depending on what you're using, again, that's something you can scale for age. So if you've got a younger child, you might want to make only maybe 4 colors and have them spaced wider apart. An older child, maybe something more like this, where you've got 7 or 8 colors and they're closer together, so that again, you get a finer result of mapping. So other things that you can do. If you have more than one child, you might try making it into a game where you can have one child create the secret terrain and cover it, have the other child come in and try and figure out what it's like, and then they can trade off and take turns. You can also, before you reveal the surface, you can have the child talk, as you saw Toki did, about what they think is under there before you just unveil it. You can also have them build it. If your kid really loves Minecraft and or Legos, maybe have them grab a bunch of Legos and see if they can build the terrain based on the map that they found. Or if they are into clays or Play-Dohs, you can turn it into a bit of an art lesson, have them try to make the terrain out of Play-Doh to what they found on their map. If you wanted to bring some math into this, of course, we can talk about scales. So you could compare how, say, 1 centimeter on our scale corresponds to 100 meters in elevation. For high school students even, you could get them to take this map and turn it into a contour map where they try and trace out the different elevations in smooth lines. And you can also build this into a massive ELA project. So we learned a lot of new words. So for the younger kids, words like mountains, valleys, hills, you could even do plains, basic geographic and geologic words. As kids get older, you can bring in other words like terrain and surface. And then you can go all the way up to more advanced where you talk about this being a topographic map that uses false colors, colors that don't mean what color we would see with our eyes, but mean another piece of information, in this case, elevation. Get the kids to talk about what they saw there before you reveal the surface. Get them to write about it. Also, you can turn this into a high school student's starting point for doing a whole report. They could research topography, they can research radar, and really take it from there. So those are all a lot of ideas of what you could do with this project. If you have any comments or questions, you want to let me know how this went when you did it, or you'd like to find out a specific modification, feel free to comment on this video, or you can message us on Facebook, or you can always email us, spiff@astro.cornell.edu. Thanks so much for watching.